you guys are having any issues hearing me, please let me know in the comments. Again, this is our first Facebook Live using our brand new webcam. So if there are any audio issues, please let me know as soon as possible and I will try to fix it. I will wait a couple more minutes just to make sure that people can hear me and that we've got people watching. So I'll give it about 10 more seconds. Again, if you can't hear me, please let me know in the comments. And yeah, we'll get started in just a little bit here. Oops, just broke off my leaf. Okay. I see no comments about people having audio issues just yet, so if you guys can all hear me, that is absolutely great. So yay, very happy this new webcam isn't causing us issues. But if you are watching, welcome. My name is Educator Emily, and we are not outside today because it is rather cold and snowy and chilly. So we are in our distance learning studio today, and we are talking all about seasonal changes in plants, which is why I have these nifty tree branches here on this desk with me. So if you tuned in for our Facebook Live a couple weeks ago, we talked about seasonal changes in animals, specifically in our North American badger and in our grizzly bear. So we talked about some animal behavioral adaptations for dealing with the upcoming winter months. But plants do the same thing, just in slightly different ways. So, in addition to having over 100 different animals from about 50 or so species here at our zoo, we are also an accredited arboretum. So all of those trees that you see on grounds, right, they deserve just as much attention as our animals do. We've got a lot of really neat species here, and in the fall, grounds are beautiful, right, with all of these trees and plants in color. Now, we have trees that fall into the deciduous category, which are the trees that have leaves like these here on my desk. And we also have trees that fall into the evergreen category. And these trees have different adaptations for surviving the winter. So your evergreen trees are trees like your Christmas trees. So your trees like your Douglas firs and your spruces and pine trees, right? And their leaves are those little needles that you see. So while they look very different from what we stereotypically think of as being a leaf, it is those teeny tiny little needles that help those trees to photosynthesize or create food from sunlight. Now, these guys are called evergreen because they are always green. They stay green year round. They actually will lower their levels of photosynthesis in the winter time to kind of conserve energy, but since those leaves are still out and about, they can photosynthesize a little bit. This kind of gives them a head start for the warmer months that come in the spring, as they already have some of these sugars and such stored away. And they also don't have to make a whole new set of leaves, right? These deciduous trees, which we'll talk about in a little bit, have to create a whole new set of leaves come spring, which are what all those little buds are on the branches that you see in April and May. Now, the deciduous trees, like I believe this is a bleeding heart right here, and I believe this is an aspen right here. These are our deciduous trees, and this is the trees that we think of changing color in the fall. And they can turn a variety of colors depending on the tree. If you're an aspen or a cottonwood, you're going to turn yellow. Maples like to turn red. We also have trees that turn orange. Fall is beautiful. It's my favorite season. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. But these guys, after they change the color of their leaves, they drop them. Okay, and then you have a bare tree all winter long. So why bother dropping your leaves if you have to grow a whole new set in a couple of months? And why do they change color? So, the chemistry of what happens inside of a leaf in the fall is super interesting. So, just like how I said that the needles on the coniferous trees or the pine trees are what help them photosynthesize, the leaves on these trees are what help these guys photosynthesize or to get food from the sun. And when these trees are green, right, they're full of this thing called chlorophyll. And chlorophyll is one of those elements in a tree that helps convert sunlight to sugar. So in high school or college, when you guys were learning about the process of photosynthesis, you learned all about the the importance of chlorophyll. Without chlorophyll, plants and trees couldn't do what they do. So, when there's lots of sunlight, these trees are producing lots of chlorophyll. The production of this is dependent on the amount of sun that the tree sees or notices during the day. However, as days get shorter, the trees sense this change in available sunlight and they start to produce less chlorophyll. As the trees produce less chlorophyll, which is what also gives the leaves those green pigments that we see in the spring and the summer, the other pigments that exist in the leaves, the reds, the oranges, and the yellows, that are overcome by the green chlorophyll in the spring and summer, start to show through. So it's that reduction in chlorophyll that allows us to see those beautiful yellows and reds and oranges that we associate with trees in the fall. Now, because there's less chlorophyll in these leaves, the processes of photosynthesis in these leaves are also slowing down. Now, this is because the tree is allocating all of its nutrients, and it's kind of going into survival mode, essentially. So, if I'm a tree, right, I've got my trunk, and then all my branches out here, and my leaves are out on my fingertips. Ultimately, I want to preserve my trunk, right? That's the main part that I want to keep safe, because if my trunk is safe, I can grow more stuff next year. So the tree is kind of cutting off nutrients to its extremities and allocating the sugar and the resources it needs into its trunk. Because of this, it's going to drop off all of those leaves, right? It's extra energy that it does not have to spend, especially because in the winter, often sunlight is less than it is in the summer, and leaves can actually be detrimental to trees in the winter. So, right now, it is snowing a bunch outside, and last weekend, it also snowed a bunch as well. If you have leaves on your tree branches, those basically act like little hammocks to catch all of that snow. And, as I'm sure you know, and as we know here at the zoo, especially last week, those little hammocks, as they accumulate with snow, become very, very heavy. And they actually might cause the branches of the trees to break and fall off. And if and when that happens, I actually pulled a huge cottonwood branch off of one of our paths last weekend because it got weighted down by so much snow. The tree not only loses a bunch of branches to which it can grow leaves off of to photosynthesize and create energy, so it loses a huge energy source, but then it also has to worry about healing this wound where its branch has just fallen off. That's a huge energy expenditure to have to worry about in a time of year where resources are really low. So by dropping the leaves off the branches of trees don't have to worry about their branches breaking or falling off, right? Because they're getting rid of all these little hammocks that could potentially collect snow and break their branches. Now, we humans, when fall time comes, right, we have a bunch of things we love to do. We love going to pumpkin patches. I love drinking pumpkin spice lattes. I think they're phenomenal. We make apple pies. We go apple picking, right? We rake our leaves and we jump into them and we have a grand old time. But then what do most people do once they're done with raking their leaves in a pile? Well, most people, they'll put them in a garbage bag and they'll throw them out. However, there's actually a way that you can use leaves that's beneficial to you and that's beneficial to the environment. You can compost them. So, leaves have all of these resources in them, and they will eventually break down and go into the soil and give those resources to the soil. So, this can actually be super beneficial if you have a garden, or if you have any sort of botanical interests, or if you have your own compost pile, right? You can just add these leaves to your compost pile. If you put your leaves in a bag and give them to the landfill, they can't really go through this natural decomposition process because they're enclosed in a plastic container that isn't going to break down. And so all of those nutrients that those trees hold isn't going anywhere, right? So you can actually use your leaves beneficially. You can give them to someone if they have a compost pile or a garden, or you can benefit your own lawn, your own trees, your own plants by composting them yourself or just leaving them be. Right? They will go away and they will decompose eventually, and then the land you live on will have all these extra nutrients in it, which is pretty awesome. Here at the zoo, we have a on ground, so we have a lot of leaves to compost. Back behind our bison exhibit, we have a huge compost pile, so what we will do is we will rake up all the leaves, put them into bags, and add them to this compost pile so that those nutrients can be recycled back into the ecosystem. Now these leaves are also super nifty enrichment for our animals as well. I can even smell these trees, that stereotypical fall smell. I can smell them through my mask. So it gives our animals lots of fun smells, especially if they're indoor animals, like Sydney's enclosure, our kookaburra. It's full of leaves right now, as is our North American mink enclosure. Ivy is her name, our North American mink. Her enclosure is also full of leaves, which is actually where I took these from. I have to go return them when I'm done. But, so they serve as enrichment for our animals, they can serve as compost for the natural environment. So leaves are super nifty for, you or me, or our animals here at the zoo. Now let's make sure that I'm not missing anything here. Oh yeah, I'll put this link in the comments. So like I said, we are an accredited arboretum here at the zoo because we do have so many plants on grounds. And there is a cool website that I can drop in the chat right now, drop in the comments, right now called Yellowstone Arboretum. So it's yellowstonearboretum.org. And here you can learn about all the plants that we have here at ZooMontana. And if you're on grounds and you're like, I have no idea what this plant is, there are some cool apps that you can use that A, will help you identify the plant, and B, will actually help you participate in citizen science. So the apps that I like to use, I use primarily iNaturalist. And basically the way this works is you download the app on your phone, it's totally free, it's totally kid-friendly, and what you do is you take a picture of this thing that you either know what it is and you want to tell the rest of the world, hey, at this location I saw this plant or this animal at this time, etc., etc. Or, if you're like me, and plants are not your forte, you can use it to identify what you're looking at. So, most of our plants here, 99% of our plants here that are part of our arboretum have little signs and tacks on them, so you can see what they are. But if you're out hiking somewhere and you have no idea what plant you're looking at, pull out your iNaturalist app, open the camera, take a picture, and then it will give you suggestions about what you might be looking at. So that's actually how I found out this was potentially a bleeding heart tree. That's how I found out this belonged to an aspen tree, because my specialty is in animals. And while plants are super cool, I don't know that much about them. So it's super easy for me to just whip out my phone out of my pocket, take a picture of what I'm looking at, and have people who do know these things tell me, and then I can learn, and then I can help out anybody else who might have questions about them. So that's a really sweet app that you can use. It's called iNaturalist, and you can download it in the App Store for, I believe, both Apple and Android devices. It can help you with plants and animals and all this other cool stuff that you find in the natural world. And I see a comment from Dusty. I love that you guys do this. For those of us who can't make it there, we still get a glimpse into the everyday operations. You guys rock. Thank you so much. We love that you love everything that we've been doing here at the zoo. Makes us feel super happy. We put a lot of effort into doing this kind of stuff. So thank you very much, Dusty. That does wrap up all of the information that I do have for today. We've been live for about 14 or so minutes. So if there are any questions, I'll stay on here for a couple more minutes more and see if those trickle down into the chat. But otherwise, that does wrap up our program for today. And again, if you guys want to learn all about the plants, every single plant that we have here on grounds, check out that Yellowstone Arboretum link that I dropped in the comments. Excuse me. All right. I'm not seeing any questions trickle through. However, if they do trickle through when I'm off, I will respond to them. Otherwise, stay safe out there today. It is super slick. It's super cold. I am not a fan of winter, so stay safe out there if you do have to go anywhere. If you don't, curl up with a nice cup of tea or hot cocoa and just enjoy watching the snowfall. It's very pretty to look at, I will give it that. Otherwise, stay warm, stay safe, and it is spooky month after all, so stay spooky. All right, bye guys. Thank you for watching this morning.